Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Saez. Today, I just wanted to touch on the mega fight this weekend going on between Canelo Alvarez and Avni Yildirim. Now, when I say a mega fight, I'm not going to sit here and say it's one of the biggest fights we want to see, but the fight does have serious implications for the 168-pound division. Canelo Alvarez, coming off a spectacular performance against Callum Smith, is facing off a very, in my opinion, he's kind of an unknown, but he certainly is a top 10 super middleweight. A lot of people feel like Canelo's cherry picking. I've been hearing that over and over, but Yildirim is his mandatory. And I hate saying this, but Canelo Alvarez did recently, in a recent report, mention that it doesn't matter who he fights, people are always going to be upset. Either people are going to say, oh, you're cherry picking with Yildirim, but he did just come off a long layoff where he's trying to get fights in. I mean, he signed to fight Billy Joe Saunders, who's someone else that's, in my opinion, a very solid and formidable 168-pound champion, right? He's undefeated. He also has been in talks about maybe potentially fighting Caleb Plant in September after the Billy Joe Saunders fight, which is already signed with the contingency that he doesn't get hurt fighting Yildirim. Does Yildirim have a chance? I don't think so. Truthfully, I mean, you always have a puncher's chance. Avni is very strong. He does hit hard. And he did change trainers with Joel Diaz getting hired as the new head trainer. I saw a couple of videos of the pad work that Yildirim was doing. I heard that Joel Diaz was going to try to implement angles into his offense, and that sounds great. I just feel like it's more marketing. I do think we should appreciate Canelo Alvarez being active. The good thing about being active is he no longer has to get into his flow, and I feel like Canelo is a very rhythmic and flow fighter. I mean, when you're a counterpuncher, but at the same time you're highly defensive while going forward, you need that timing to consistently counterpunch, and it's only going to get sharper and sharper. If you look at the fight where Canelo fought Triple G, the first one, for the second fight, you saw a different Canelo. You saw way more active defense. And then after that fight, when he fought Daniel Jacobs, you saw that head movement being even better. Then he fought Rocky Fielding, etc., etc. It just gets better and better. I'm pretty sure he fought Daniel Jacobs after Rocky Fielding, but I'll check on that. But regardless, the more he fights, the more active he is, the better he's going to be at fighting. So I find it really, really fitting that he gets kind of a okay fight. I mean, Canelo Alvarez has fought, let me just do the roster really quick. I know it off the top of my head, but I like getting them in order. Since 2019, he's fought, 2018. Gennady Golovkin, Rocky Fielding, Daniel Jacobs, Sergey Kovalev, Callum Smith, and now he's fighting Avni Yildirim. Gennady Golovkin, pretty solid fight. People really thought that Golovkin won the first fight, and I kind of agree with that. You could argue that Triple G won the first fight. I don't think it was a robbery. Rewatch it. It's a really good fight. But lately, everything, if you don't agree with the scorecard, is a robbery. I mean, I've heard people say that Lomachenko got robbed versus Teofimo Lopez. I've heard that Broner got a gift decision against Giovanni Santiago. Anytime someone that you thought won didn't win, you think it's a robbery. There are clear-cut robberies. I mean, you look at the Erislandy Lara and the fight with Paul Williams, that was kind of a robbery. I agree with that. If you look at Ike Corte and Vernon Forrest, that was a robbery. So when you look at bad robberies, you see more or less what's going on. Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather, that one judge that had it a draw, that's a robbery. When you see something like that, that is just impossible, and a judge completely disagrees with the consensus and there is no argument for the other fighter, it's a robbery. But I think Canelo Alvarez, with that roster, shows that he is trying to fight the best. And what makes it even worse is we constantly talk about Canelo wanting to fight people, right? Oh, I want you to fight Billy Joe Saunders. Oh, I want you to fight Charlo. Or my favorite is, oh, he's ducking Andrade, right? No one wants to fight Andrade. No one wants to fight Andrade. I just feel like he doesn't give, I don't know what happens, but he just has bad luck. I mean, are people lining up to fight Andrade? I don't think so. but does that necessarily mean that everyone's ducking you if you can't fight? I don't know. Maybe just I can't really explain why Andrade doesn't get fights. And considering that he's on the zone, maybe I thought that fight would be a little easier to make. But maybe Eddie Hearn doesn't want to match him up against Andrade. Who knows, right? But at the end of the day, you cannot call Canelo a cherry picker. He's fighting his mandatory, right? He's entitled to a tune-up. Or, look, you don't need to fight every week. And I don't want to make this a Canelo cherry picking video because I've spoken about this before, but it has to stop because I keep reading that Yildirim is nothing, etc., etc. Sure, Yildirim lost to Anthony Durrell. I mean, Anthony Durrell's no bum. He's a pretty solid fighter, and Durrell only has one loss. So, like, give him a break. It wasn't like he lost to some fighter with multiple losses that no one heard of. Anthony Durrell is still a prominent 168-pound middleweight, super middleweight. He's ranked in the top 5, so they got to stop the madness. In terms of this fight, though, I know a lot of people keep saying it's going to be an easy fight for Canelo. I agree. I don't really see Yildirim having a true shot. But again, he hits hard, and with Joel Diaz, maybe he can help him neutralize some of the things that Canelo does. I just feel like when it comes to a fighter like Canelo, right now he's in an entirely different league, and a different kind of fighter is going to have to beat him. You're going to need someone who is tricky, flight-footed, moves around, makes him chase him, and I think Billy Joe Saunders is certainly a good fight for Canelo. I just feel like we should be a little more grateful the fact that Canelo is actually telling us who he wants to fight in May, saying like, hey, okay, so I'll give you guys the fight you want. Let me just fight this one fight in Miami. I want to stay sharp. I don't want to wait a couple of months to fight someone like Billy Joe Saunders, which is showing that he does respect Billy Joe Saunders, and Billy Joe Saunders should be respected. Sure, he did struggle at times and didn't look spectacular in all of his performances. At 168 so far, he's a champion. He has solid boxing IQ. You saw what he did to a bunch of different people in the ring, including a Mr. Chris Eubank Jr., who a lot of people are high on, right? He also beat Lemieux pretty one-sidedly. That was a shocker. A lot of people thought Lemieux was going to kill him, and he's been in there with really high-quality opponents. So stop disrespecting Billy Joe Saunders by calling Canelo a cherry picker. If he wants to fight Yildirim just to stay sharp, I'm okay with that. I just don't understand if Canelo were to fight Billy Joe Saunders this weekend, people would still be unhappy with him. They would still feel like, oh, we want you to fight Andrade. Well, guess what? Like, there's a bunch of steps that goes into this. Andrade hasn't fought in God knows how long. When was the last time you saw Andrade in the ring? Do you think he truly wants to fight Canelo right off of no fights? No. Do you think Canelo wants to fight Billy Joe Saunders, who is a really, really good fighter, really tricky southpaw, has a really big following? It's going to be a big event, pay-per-view. He's going to want to be ready for the biggest event possibly of the year. Cinco de Mayo weekend, it's going to be popping, boxing is going to be buzzing, and the pound-for-pound king wants I don't even want to say an easy fight because Yildirim is ranked highly in his sanctioning body. The sanctioning body, sure, the belts, right? You want to say, oh, they don't mean anything. They do mean something because without belts, what are we doing here? We can't rank anyone. We can't come up with a pound-for-pound list. You can't come up with accolades or accomplishments that can make a case for someone being valid as a fighter and then just throw it away whenever you feel like it. It's inconvenient for you or your argument, right? Canelo Alvarez is fighting someone who's ranked highly in his sanctioning body to keep his belt, which means something because in May, what's going to happen? He's going to fight for another belt. You're going to have 3 belts on the line, Cinco de Mayo weekend, UK versus Mexico. It's going to be a spectacular fight, assuming that he doesn't get injured or loses. I just don't see Yildirim having the skill set to give Canelo issues. I don't think you fight someone that knows how to deal with angles, specifically since he's experienced a lot of really good fighters at fighting at angles. He fought Erislan De Lara. He fought Miguel Cotto. He fought Floyd Mayweather Jr. So he's well skilled in the art of angles and how to attack an opponent. I think the person that gives Canelo the hardest, in my opinion, shot is someone that can move, is tricky, and doesn't really want to engage and makes Canelo really set the pace. Similar to what Daniel Jacobs did in spots. You have to fight Canelo off you, or he's going to stick to you like glue and break you down little by little with that subtle pressure. As you saw this weekend, even Valdez had kind of similar tactics to Canelo. Inch your way in, put that pressure, walk someone down, and then when it's time, hit him with explosive shots to kind of make him shell up and feel a little shocked, not knowing where the punches are coming from, and feeling you essentially in front of them, impacting them a lot. So in this fight, I think actually to circle back, just to kind of finish my thought, another kind of fighter that I think is going to give Canelo some trouble, and this is where Yildirim, I think, in my opinion, could pose a danger, is someone who really doesn't try to outbox Canelo. Someone that's just raw, rugged, big, and just doesn't respect Canelo. It's high risk, right? He can get caught with a punch maybe he didn't expect coming. Something wild, something that is not textbook would give him trouble. But at the end of the day, I just don't see Yildirim being a problem for the pound-for-pound king. There's a reason why he's the pound-for-pound king, and little by little, the Canelo team, Eddie Reynoso and Canelo just keep getting better. I just don't see this kid with much of a chance, but I think it is good that the pound-for-pound king in boxing is just staying active. You don't necessarily always have to be this guy that every single fight you fight killer after killer after killer. I'd rather see Canelo 4 times a year or 3 times a year with 2 hard fights, and then, hey, throw him a bone. Let him stay sharp, let him practice, let him develop, because what you're doing when you develop is what? You're getting better, which gives us better fights, and he stays sharp. I mean, at the end of the day, the more you fight, the more sharp you're going to feel, and it's not going to be as daunting of a task to get back in your rhythm, and you won't feel rusty. I mean, look at Adrian Broner. He was off 2 years, right, since the Manny Pacquiao fight, and you saw a difference in Adrian Broner. So I'm trying to come up with an argument for Yildirim. I'm going to watch more film, but based on my prediction right now, based on the fights I saw, I just don't see Yildirim giving him a problem, and I expect Canelo to just have a masterclass, and I think he stops Yildirim just due to the volume of punching. He's very slow, and his defense is a little leaky, and that's the last thing you want when you're fighting the pound-for-pound king. This is the episode for today. I just wanted to kind of touch on some stuff. I started the IGTV on Instagram, so if you are on Instagram, you could also listen to the podcast if you don't feel like hitting Captivate. I just want to give people as many options as possible. The YouTube channel is also up at Good Boxing Podcast. Follow on Spotify, write a review on Apple, and thank you so much. Be well, have a good day, and enjoy the fight this weekend. Stop overthinking it. He's giving us what we want. Billy Joe in May after this fight. Let him work on some stuff. Let him practice. Let him just stay sharp, and let's enjoy what we're watching. Canelo's in his prime, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. Enjoy your day.